Revenge of the Bully by Scott Starkey, Chapter 12, The Mystery of the Evil Head. Monday mornings are the worst. For me, they usually mean the start of a week spent hiding from bullies and getting yelled at by teachers. It was really bad when I lived in New York and when I first moved to Ohio. Every night, I would lie awake as late as possible, hoping I could keep Monday morning from arriving, but it always did. Today, however, was the first Monday in my life that I actually wanted to go to school. Everything had gone great on Saturday with Trevor and Josie, but more importantly, I couldn't wait for what might happen after school today. I'll be a little late this afternoon, I finally announced, chewing on a piece of pancake. I tried to sound as casual as possible. Oh, asked my mom, why is that? Well, I paused. I was embarrassed to talk about it and pushed another piece of pancake through some syrup. I felt my family's eyes on me, so I said it. I'm going to ask Jessica if I can walk her home. My mom smiled at my dad. He put down the paper, beamed back at her, and actually reached for her hand. Penny wasn't as charmed. Jessica is not going to go out with you. I should know. I sat next to her in the car the whole way home from camp. She kept making a face like she smelled something rotten. But you did smell pretty bad, Rodney. Did you shower at camp? I glared at her. Penny, my mom cautioned. What? Go get cleaned up for school. I'm already dressed. Penny. My sister huffed and shoved off into the other room. My dad was still grinning. Walking a girl home from school, that's quite a big step, Rodney. You want to hear about the first time I walked a girl home? No, said my mom. My dad shut his mouth. I was glad he didn't go any further. I was afraid he was going to start talking about how things were in his day. In my day, he continued, there were certain things you'd better do if you wanted a girl to like you. I braced myself, ready for one of his long stories. They're all still true today. The first thing, he raised his finger in the air, is to open the door for her. The second, he raised a second finger, is to make sure she walks on the inside of the street, away from traffic. Do you know what the third thing is, Rodney? I shook my head no. Surprisingly, I actually wanted him to continue. While he wasn't exactly Fernando, my dad seemed to know what he was talking about. The third thing is you must hold her books for her. Got that, Rodney? I nodded. Yep, hold her books. My dad smiled. Rules to live by. Satisfied that his son had absorbed his wisdom, he turned to his next favorite breakfast table subject, the weather. Looks like it's going to be a hot one today. My mom ignored him and said, Rodney, I hate to remind you of this, but you have football practice after school. Jessica may not want to wait until you're finished. I hadn't thought of that and started to feel deflated. My dad jumped in. Of course she'll wait. Look at him sitting there. He's a rathbone. My mom stared from my father to me. You're right, honey. He's a rathbone, all right. With all that syrup on his shirt, he's the spitting image of you. Now hurry up and change, Rodney. But this is the only clean short-sleeved shirt I have. Just put on long sleeves and hurry. You don't want to miss the bus and make Jessica walk home alone, do you? The idea that football practice might ruin my plans dampened my spirits slightly, but even so, my face wore a smile as I stepped up to the bus stop. I was confident Jessica would say yes, if not today, then soon. I had another reason to feel good. Trevor had left Saturday night real happy and promised we were friends forever. For once, I didn't have a potential bully waiting for me at school. My dad was right. Even though it was autumn, it felt nice and hot out like summer. Rishi was watching me from his tree. You're smiling, Rodney. What's going on? What are you talking about, I asked. It's just that you're not a morning person. You're always staring down at the pavement, acting like your dog died, totally serious. It's my job to cheer you up. I'm like your personal cup of coffee. I don't always look serious, I said, frowning. I guess you're right. Sometimes you look like you might cry. What? No, I don't. Sure you do. He pulled out his phone. Check out this picture I took of you last Wednesday. I snatched the phone, and sure enough, there I was with wet eyes and downturned lips. Sure you do. He pulled out his phone. Check out this picture I took of you last Wednesday. I snatched the phone, and sure enough, there I was with wet eyes and downturned lips. That's just my allergies, and I'm deleting this photo. That's fine. I already uploaded it and have hundreds more just like it. I sighed and handed back the phone. We both turned around at the deep sound of the bus approaching. Embarrassing pictures or not, Rishi couldn't bring me down this morning. In fact, the good feeling lasted the whole ride and was still there when we entered school. I felt lighter in my step, and seeing Dr. Stone standing by the front door, I grinned and said in my best British accent, Top of the morning to you. She smiled and said, An exchange student? How nice. Would you like to see how we conduct detention in America? No. She nodded and resumed staring stonily at the students arriving behind me. Even that didn't squelch my excitement, nor did seeing Kayla standing by Jessica's side. They were in front of Jessica's locker. Rishi said, "Look at them. Rodney, the two best girls in school." Yeah, I agree. With half of it anyway. We headed over. "I heard about this whole walking home thing," Kayla announced. "Unfortunately, Rodney, today's no good." She put on a fake sad face. "Why not?" I asked. Jessica went to open her mouth, but Kayla cut her off, as usual. "Because Jessica and I have yearbook club this afternoon. We have to stay an hour after dismissal. We have to take the late bus." "Are you sure you have to stay an hour after school?" I asked. "Yes," Kayla answered. "Are you positive?" "Yes, we're positive." "Well, that's great," I almost shouted. "My football practice ends an hour after school." I glanced over at Kayla's shoulder. "Jessica, would you like to meet me here after that at that time?" "Okay, Rodney," she said, smiling. Kayla frowned, but Rishi may have caused that. He had suddenly stepped into her personal space and asked, "Maybe we can double date?" "Ew!" Kayla made a gagging face and stomped off, but not before shouting, "Just that thought gives me diarrhea." Rishi grabbed my shirt excitedly. "Did you see that, Rodney? I'm close to winning her heart." Well, you did seem to have an effect on her," I said in support. "So I'll see you after school?" Jessica asked, ignoring my crazy friend. I smiled and gave her a big nod. That smile stayed on my face all day. It was there when I got in line to buy lunch, and Trevor announced to the crowd, "Sorry, everyone, but my man Rathbone goes straight to the front." I felt a little bad about cutting 30 students, but my man Rathbone had a nice ring to it. By afternoon in Spanish class, I actually got a cramp in my cheek from smiling so much. Ms. Noabla criticized my pronunciation, but I just smiled. How could Rishi say I walked around like I was about to cry? Even after football practice, the smile was still there. I headed down the long, empty corridor toward Jessica's locker. As I turned a corner, I noticed the light from the front glass doors reflected off the shiny floor. It was interrupted by the shadow of a solitary figure. My smile widened still further. "I was waiting for a couple of minutes," Jessica called out to me. Her voice sounded playful. As I got closer, she asked, "What's wrong with your face?" "Nothing," I answered. "I guess I never saw you smile before," she teased. Great. Now she was saying it. I was about to come back with the joke when I noticed her reaching down to lift her backpack. "May I carry that?" I asked. "Sure, thanks." "No problem." My answer came out strained instead of smooth. What'd she have in there? A pile of bricks? Lead bars? I went to swing it over my shoulder and fell back into the lockers. In my dad's day, I don't think girls carried so many books. Combined with my own backpack, it felt like I had a safe tied to my shoulders. Fortunately, Jessica had started moving down the hall and didn't notice me thrashing about. I saw she was at the front doors. I had to hold the door open for her. I sprinted down the hall and yanked. In my eagerness, I pulled the door too hard and she nearly got bashed in the face. This date was not going great so far. "Sorry about that," I said. "I wanted to hold the door for you." "That's very nice of you. Just be careful next time. I like my nose the way it is." "It's a beautiful nose, I guess. I mean, I'll do my best." She rolled her eyes but grinned, and we headed outside. Jessica lived about a mile from school, which I thought was perfect since it would give me a lot of time with her. Now that I was hauling 500 pounds on my back, I wasn't so sure. Plus, I had changed into a long sleeved flannel shirt in the morning. The afternoon sun was super hot, and beads of sweat began to roll down my forehead into my eyes. "This is nice," I managed. "It is nice," Jessica agreed. "Hey, did you know Rishi joined the yearbook committee?" Didn't take a genius to figure out why. No, he never mentioned anything about it. "Well, he showed up today with a full portfolio of photos he printed out. Mr. Whitlacker, who's the advisor, loved them and made him head photographer. He seems really interested in photography." "That's not the only thing he's interested in," I said, wiping some sweat from my forehead. Jessica laughed. "I think it might be good for Kayla. All summer she whined about Dave. She was real upset when he told her he didn't like her." I'd forgotten that Kayla liked my friend Dave last year. "Anyway," Jessica continued, "today Rishi sat down next to her and kept showing her pictures. She wasn't interested and told him to go away, but then she found one she liked." "Oh yeah? What did Kayla like?" She liked the ones of you. Of me? I find that hard to believe. I was trying to have a normal conversation as we walked along, but my eyes had begun to sting and the world was getting blurry. Well, she didn't much care for the ones he showed her, ones of you playing football, but then she took his portfolio into her own hands and found ones she did like the ones of you crying. What? That was allergies, I yelled, wiping sweat from my face. I was praying Jessica didn't look over at my watery, stinging eyes. Anyway, it could have been worse with the pictures. At least Kayla didn't find the one of Kayla's favorite was the one of you in a dress. She really loved that. I bet, I said, trying to laugh. Wait until I get my hands on Rishi. Jessica must have sensed my thoughts. Rishi didn't mean it. She stole it from him. Besides, the two of them seemed to have a lot of fun, and I thought you looked good. Pink is your color. I'm glad they found something in common. It was hard to get mad or stay embarrassed with Jessica by my side, but suddenly something felt wrong. My chicken senses tingled. I spun around and looked back down the block. All I could make out were houses and empty yards. What is it? Jessica asked. Nothing. I thought I saw something. It felt like I was being watched, but that was silly. If I told Jessica, she'd think I was nuts. We kept walking. Our conversation was light and fun. It had been a while since the two of us had really spoken. I'd almost forgotten how great she was and how smart. Why was this awesome girl walking with me? I felt a twinge of nerves when the tone of her voice sounded a bit more serious. She said, I'm glad your friend, Fernando, explained everything about the summer. I feel a lot better now. Me too. It was really hard being away from you. Thank God for Fernand. I jumped. Over Jessica's shoulder, 50 feet in front of us, I saw what looked like a strange, creepy figure step out from behind some hedges. It had wild, crazy hair, almost like a clown mask. A chill ran down my spine and my right knee buckled. Just as I started to raise my hand to point, the figure slipped back behind the bush. You're right, Jessica continued. The summer was hard. I think the hardest part was that you couldn't use the phone. Don't you agree? With what? Are you listening to me, Rodney? Oh, I absolutely agree completely. Maybe it wasn't the most graceful recovery, but I was focused on getting as far away as possible from the creepy clown person. Do you want to switch to the other side of the road? I suggested. No, this side is sunnier. Exactly. I forgot to apply my sunscreen. My afternoon sunblock. I burn very easily. I was only half lying. I couldn't stop sweating, and the stinging in my eyes was getting worse. You're silly. Come on. I had taken my father's dating advice and made sure Jessica walked on the inside, away from traffic and closest to maniacs. As we reached the hedge, I could actually hear my heart pounding. I held my breath, waiting for a murderous hand to grab us, but nothing happened. We walked right by, and I let out a high-pitched wheeze. Are you okay? Jessica asked. Yeah, just my allergies again. I fake coughed, almost dropping the backpacks. Are you sure that's it? You seem a bit high-strung. Me? I'm not high-strung! The masthead suddenly rose from behind a parked car on the other side of the street. Or was it just the sun reflecting off the hood? The whole world was hazy from the sweat in my eyes. I could feel my pulse slamming me in the temple. The head went slowly back down and disappeared behind the car. I gripped my chest. Rodney, you're scaring me, Jessica said. You don't know what scary is, I thought. It felt like I was about to faint. Who was hiding behind the mask? Was it someone trying to ruin my date? If so, they were doing an excellent job. I couldn't stop my mind from racing. Was the person trying to do something worse than ruin a date? That thought was even more unnerving. Either way, I realized I'd better get my act together or this would be the final act of Jessica and Rodney. I forced a laugh. I was just joking around. I'm like the king of relaxation. Nothing gets to this guy. I didn't realize you were joking. You're really good at acting and nervous. Of acting scared and nervous. Don't forget cowardly, I added. Yeah, that too. You could win an Oscar. Well, acting's one of my hobbies. I even did a scene once with the famous Broadway actor Victor Johnson. Jessica ignored me and suggested we take the shortcut through the park. I met this with mixed emotions. If she was talking shortcuts, then she was probably tired of my jittery nerves and wanted to get home. On the other hand, the straps from her backpack were beginning to cut off the circulation in my arms. The park sounds like a great idea. In the corner of my eye, I saw the creepy clown mask pop up over a stockade fence that lined the sidewalk. It was just a few feet away. Part of me wanted to bolt, but another bolder part took over. Without thinking, I lifted Jessica's backpack and heaved it as hard as I could at the head, which ducked just in time. The backpack landed with a thud on the other side of the fence. Jessica spun around. What did you just do? I was breathing too hard to respond. Rodney, did you just throw my backpack over the fence? I stared down at my empty hands and back at Jessica. The look on her face told me she had finally decided I was crazy. And was I? Was I seeing things? Huh? I asked. What's the matter with you? You threw my bag over the fence. You're completely white. You're shaking. You're not answering me. So you're not having a nice time? My mouth was running off on its own. Jessica tilted her head and frowned. I'd better say something fast. Knowing I couldn't tell her the truth, I did my best to channel my inner Fernando. Jessica, I said, I've been wanting to spend time with you for so long, and now you're standing here and looking so pretty. I'm a little nervous. A little nervous? You're soaking wet. Plus, you just threw my bag over the fence. Okay, very nervous. You're just not any girl, you know. Her glare softened slightly. I'll get the bag, I added. I had to do it. But as I approached the high fence, all I could think of was the maniac waiting for me on the other side. My knees went shaky. There were no garbage cans around to stand on. I'd have to jump to reach the top of the wooden pickets. I had failed to impress Jessica with my cool, relaxed personality. At least I could redeem myself by showing her my superior physical abilities. Stand back, I said, as I rubbed my sweaty palms against my pants, jumped, and managed to grip the scratchy top. I pulled hard to hoist myself up. I felt an instant burning strain in my arms and shoulders, and only rose about an inch. My brain flashed back to Mr. Cramps, my demented athletics instructor from summer camp. I could almost hear him yelling at me, Rathbone, those spindly arms of yours make me sick. You're a disgrace. You should be doing push-ups and pull-ups and sit-ups and chin-ups each and every morning. As I struggled and groaned and the wood dug deeper into my hands, I wished I'd listened to him. I could feel a splinter biting into my palm as I attempted in vain to pull myself up. I just hung there as Jessica watched me gasp, flop, and struggle like a dying fish on a hook. Why don't you use the gate? She asked. Gate? I was almost blind by now from the sweat in my eyes. I looked over about 10 feet and there it was. I wanted to smack my forehead, but instead I dropped from the fence and said in my most dignified voice, Anyone can use the gate, but if you insist. Pushing the gate open was one of the scariest things I've done. As it turned out, the creep was gone. The bag was sitting on the grass, and I looked like a complete moron. I retrieved it without incident, and Jessica and I walked into the park. It was a somber, quiet walk, and I had really blown it. We were getting closer to her house, and I figured this would be the final moments of my final date with her. I was pleasantly surprised when she pointed to a bench and said, You look a little tired after your climb. Why don't we sit? Sure, I said, secretly thrilled that I had more time. I was also happy the bench was out of the sun near some shady woods. We both relaxed, and I could feel myself cooling off. There was even a breeze that helped dry my sweaty hair. Everything was great, except I could tell Jessica was trying to put some words together. What is it? I asked. She smiled. I've always thought you were nice, Rodney, but you did act a little weird today. You said you were nervous. Do I really make you that nervous? I didn't know how to answer. She hadn't seen the evil clown head, and talking about it would make me seem weirder than I already appeared. Maybe I could tell her about something else. I'm sorry about the weirdo stunts, I began. You don't make me that nervous. It's just that I have so many other high pressure things going on in my life. I guess sometimes they get to me. What things? You can talk to me, Rodney. I paused for a moment. The stinging had finally left my eyes, and for the first time that afternoon, wasn't embarrassed to face her. She sure looked great sitting there, and there was a lot more to her than beautiful blue eyes and long blonde hair. Most girls would have left me by now, but she was still here, genuinely concerned about me. Could I have found someone who'd actually listen to me? I have a ton of strange problems, I managed. She cringed a little back a little. I heard you had a slimy contagious disease. I don't have a slimy contagious disease. That was just Rishi running his mouth. Well, then tell me. I didn't want to overwhelm her with everything, so I figured I'd just tell her one problem. You know that my mom is the new food critic for the Cleveland Plain Dealer, right? Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, awesome, I replied sarcastically. Anyway, you know that new restaurant in town, Mama's? I couldn't believe it. I found myself talking about the whole review situation with the boss and about how tough and scary those guys were. I told her how we had to win every football game or they would come after me. I told her about the big dinner they were planning for the guys in Chicago, from Chicago, and how I agreed to work opening night, even though I knew my parents wouldn't want me to. I must have gone on for 20 minutes. Even more amazing, she actually listened. She was the first person to ever take my concerns seriously. When I finally finished, she said, "You need to tell your parents. Actually, you should tell the police. This boss guy sounds dangerous." Jessica, adults really don't listen to me. They certainly won't believe me. And the boss made it clear that I'd be better not to tell anyone or else. But what are you going to do if your mom gives Mama's a bad review? I didn't really have an answer. I picked up an acorn and flung it at a tree. I've always wanted to see Mexico. Seriously, Rodney, I don't know how you live with this hanging over you. Well, I was about to answer her when a branch snapped in back of us, followed by some crunching sounds in the woods. This time we both jumped. We spun around, and I thought I saw someone running off. Probably just a dog, Jessica said. Probably, I lied. My heart began to race. Had someone been listening to me spill my guts? Who could be listening? Was it the same crazy head I had seen all afternoon? Did the head belong to Cheese or Willie or maybe Toby? I fought hard to knock the horrible thoughts out of my mind. If the boss found out I had been blabbing about him. No one spooked us the rest of the way home. We paused at the end of Jessica's driveway. I felt a little awkward, unsure of what to say. I noticed her mom had come to the door and stood looking down at us. Trying to be polite, I smiled and waved. Jessica, on the other hand, frowned as if to say, "Go away." Her mom just smiled and didn't budge. "Well, this was fun, Rodney. Maybe we can hang out again soon?" I looked into her beautiful eyes and said, "That would be awful. No, I mean awesome. No, yes, I would love you. I mean, not you. I would love to." I smacked my forehead and took a deep breath. "I can't think of anything I'd rather do." She laughed quietly and took her backpack from me. My biceps, neck, and back all gave huge sighs of relief. "I'll see you tomorrow morning, Rodney." She turned and walked up to her front door. Her mom held it open for her, and I watched as the best girl in the world disappeared into the house. On the way home, I pondered my long, crazy day. It was great that things had turned out good with Jessica, but the mystery of the creepy head left me feeling jumpy and frightened. My mom broke my trance when she met me at the door. "Rodney, I have great news." "What?" I asked. My mom's great news was never great, but even I wasn't prepared for what came next. "It's Mrs. Luthkraut. She's out." The world closed in around me. "How do you know?" I finally managed. "She stopped by this afternoon. She got out today and came straight here to see you. I told her you were walking Jessica home. Isn't that nice?" "Rodney?" I couldn't reply. I nodded dumbly and ran up to my broom. I jumped on the bed and buried my face in the pillow. Too many thoughts were crowding my mind. Had the mystery surrounding the evil head been solved? Had that been Mrs. Lutzkraut behind the clown mask trying to ruin my date? Was she the noise in the woods behind the bench? If she had heard what I told Jessica about the boss, how far would she go to use it against me? As I pieced it all together, I was struck by an alarming thought. Either half of Garrettsville was after me, or I was losing my mind. Or both. Lucky for me, I knew a room had just become available at Shady Pastures. And that is the end of chapter 12.